Okay, so day 2 of parallelograms. We just have 2 more properties of parallelograms to really be looking at and working with. And remembering that a parallelogram is going to be a 4-sided figure with 2 pairs of parallel sides. So that's always going to be our definition, and then these are just properties that we're looking at. So the first property we're going to look at today is that your adjacent angles, so the ones that are next to each other, are going to be supplementary. Which means 180 degrees. They're going to add to be 180 degrees. So the ones that we're talking about here are the ones that are next to each other. So in this case here, G and H, these are going to add to 180 degrees. G and F are also going to be 180 degrees. F and J will be 180 degrees, and H and J will be 180 degrees. So if we look at these as a statement, we're saying that the measure of angle G plus the measure of angle H is going to be 180 degrees. We also can say that the measure of angle G plus the measure of angle F is going to be 180 degrees. The measure of angle F plus the measure of angle J will be 180 degrees. And the measure of angle H plus the measure of angle J will be 180 degrees, and that gives us all of our adjacent angles will be supplements. We'll be adding to 180 degrees. The other one is that we have these diagonals, and we've been talking about diagonals. So in this case, GJ is a diagonal, and FH or HF is a diagonal. And a property that parallelograms have is that these diagonals are going to bisect each other. So the diagonals bisect each other. Okay, or we can say that P is the midpoint of both diagonals. So P is the midpoint of FH, and it's the midpoint of GJ. And that's why we get these segments congruent. We get GP congruent to PJ, as well as FP congruent to PH. And I know that's a lot of information to write in this small little box, but those are all the things that we essentially need for our properties of our parallelograms. So if you look at the first example, we see that we're using the property that these are going to be supplements. So angle X and angle W are adjacent, they're next to each other, and they're going to be supplementary, which means that they're going to add to 180 degrees. Okay. You can also think about it as these lines we know are going to be parallel to one another, which means XY is cutting through 2 parallel lines. XY is a transversal. And we can also think about, these are going to be supplementary because X and angle Y are same side interior angles, which we also know add to 180 degrees. You thought all of that stuff was going away? Nope. So what we can say, they're going to be supplementary. We know that these are going to be same side interior. That's essentially why they end up being supplementary. So 4x plus 7x plus 15 equals 180 degrees. I'm going to combine my like terms here, 4x and 7x. I get 11 11x plus 15 equals 180. I subtract 15 on both sides. 11x equals what? 6. So 165. 165. I'm going to divide by 11 on both sides. I get x equals 15 for this one. Okay, and you could plug those back in and get the value of x and w, those angles as well. In the second example, we want to find the value of x for this picture here. So we have ku, so k to u, and then we have um. So km is a diagonal, and we know that u is going to be the midpoint of that diagonal. So that means that ku and um are going to be congruent. We also know that JL is a diagonal, so we also know these are going to be congruent. Okay, and if two things are congruent, we can set them equal. So we have 3x plus 3 equals 4x minus 4. And I'm going to combine my like terms. I have subtract 3x on both sides. I have 3 equals x minus 4. I add 4 to both sides, and I end up with 7 equals x. And that's all it's asking me for. I could plug it back in and get the values if I really want to, but I'm not going to this time. So do some of the classwork with these properties, and we're looking good.